Hello and welcome to Playwright, a podcast about creating and sharing new ways to play. My name is Ryan Hamann, also called H.
And I'm Ryan Quintal, also called Q.
Now, this is the first week that we are joining a new network. Not that we were unhappy before, it's just that, we've been long a part of the Cane and Rinse family, and we thought to just make it official. We're going to be joining that network of podcasts, which has been growing considerably lately. We've had the Cane and Rinse podcast. It's been running for like 5-7 years, something like that. The Sound of Play podcast, where we talk about video game music. The Sausage Factory, which is a recent addition. Interviews with developers to get some of that behind the scenes, see how the sausage is made, of course. And now,
this
Playwright.
Trash. That's right. Cane and Rinse has reached a new low just mere weeks after I did a terrible British impression on the show. This is it. For anybody that's been following us, first of all, new listeners, if you're joining us or you're just looking in the back catalog now, welcome. We're happy to have you.
For now, at least, the pitching portal is going to remain right where it is at playwrightcast.com/pitch. So if you have a video game idea that you would like to pitch us, get this in here early, then you can continue to go to playwrightcast.com/pitch, and we will discuss that idea on an upcoming show. But, it feels good to create something out of nothing and then sell it to a major network, and now we're going to be absolutely loaded.
That's right. We're sitting on top like fat cats, and we can just coast.
Actually, I'm just remembering now that I forgot to ask for any money.
Oh, no.
That's a real bummer. I guess we'll just have to start a new podcast alongside this one, run that for about 1.5 years, and then remember to ask for money.
Got it.
All right. Well, anyways, we're happy to be on the network, and we hope that you'll continue to join us, as I don't think it's going to be changing that much, honestly.
Yeah, no, it won't. It's the same old show, and now we just get to be alongside some other amazing shows that we'll also get to pitch and talk about during, the end of each episode, so it'll be good.
Let's get this new leg of our journey started off on a strong foot. Q, what are you going to be pitching today?
Okay, about 2 hours before the show today, I went to twitch.tv. Have you heard of this website?
I've heard of it.
Okay. And I was perusing through, and for a lot of people that go on Twitch, this is all the pitch, by the way. There are many sections, and not all of them are just playing video games. And I happened into the very strangely labeled /iconed ASMR section. And I watched a bunch of ASMR videos, which I might now regret. But shout out to somebody named Bunny Ayumi who was doing weird ASMR stuff. But everybody's got these crazy microphones, hearing-based, that are like literally 2 ears to get something called binaural audio. Mm-hmm. I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if there were some sort of sound or rhythm-based detection ASMR game where you could either take a bunch of physicsy objects in-world and create your own ASMR, maybe upgrade what types of weird fingertips you have to do all your clicking and clacking and surfaces to rub together, and export clips for the community to enjoy, or potentially using the ear microphones to try and capture distinct sounds in an environment that the prompt changes per day. So there's kind of 2 games in there. Maybe we can smash them together. Maybe we do something weird. But an ASMR video game, can it be a thing?
Okay, well, let's start the clock. So, of course, at this point, we give ourselves 10 minutes to kind of rip apart these video game pitches and build it into something that we could potentially approach one of the major video game companies, EA or Ubisoft, with and say, hey, we're ready to build this. Please give us lots of money.
They remember to ask for money.
Right. We'll have to remember at that point. Otherwise, it's going to be a huge waste of time. So, okay. So are we talking about, in the first idea at least, a virtual ASMR studio? So you have kind of like a 3D space with a bunch of tools that you can use to create all sorts of different types of noises?
Yeah, what I think is interesting about the virtual studio concept, like, I think normally anytime you put someone in a virtual studio, the natural proclivity is to like either make them a shooting gallery or to give them like musical instruments. And the idea of giving people just very strange, mundane household objects could be sort of interesting if they have to make different sounds or different rhythms for that. Maybe there's some frequency that the computer's looking for, and you're like, okay, I bet I can make something reasonably high pitched by rubbing together this notebook and piece of wax paper or something.
You know, it would be kind of funny, and not to derail things immediately, but to have like a VR studio. It's modeled after like a Foley artist studio.
Yes.
And so you've got all these like shoes and pieces of wood and sheets of aluminum and everything that you can use to try to score. I don't know if it's like old cartoon clips or even live gameplay from another game or something like that. But, maybe coming up with very creative ways to score these different scenes and give you a little bit of a behind the scenes look at how Foley artistry is actually done.
H, I think you have taken this in the right direction. What if, so I haven't played it. I want to play it. You've encouraged me to get an Oculus. I have to get one. Beat Saber, correct? This is a game where you can play along to YouTube songs, potentially, if someone has scored them?
Well, it's not YouTube songs per se, but people can create custom, what would you call it? Note maps? Is that what? It's been a thing forever, ever since,
like MIDI.
Dance Dance Revolution. And
Yeah,
but people are able to create custom maps and charts. That's the word. Charts based on any song that they want. Then you can download those individually for playing the PC version.
I love the idea, and I know that Google is not going to be down for this unless we let Google make the game, where you could play you essentially get the Foley Artist Studio, and you can play like Google and play any like YouTube clip, but you get to sort of do the Foley for the whole thing and potentially create an alternate version of the video where it has your Foley on top of it. I'm thinking of that terrible Jurassic Park kazoo / accordion thing. If you kind of have, you could do that and then also have a free play mode, which just happens to be like catnip for ASMR people.
You know, another thing about like 5.1 mixed movies for surround sound mixes is that it's actually fairly easy to extract like the music or the sound effects or the dialogue from a movie. And so maybe they give you scenes from famous movies with all the sound effects extracted, and it's up to you, almost like a Jackbox type of game, to create the Foley that goes along with, and this doesn't even need to be VR. It could be like a soundboard that you have on your phones if you want to turn it into like a party game, or you can do like an online competition between multiple people wearing VR headsets or just at their consoles or PC or whatever. But taking these scenes that people are familiar with and kind of putting funny sound effects into them. I like the idea of a VR setup a little bit more than just a soundboard, because it encourages you to actually understand how the sounds are made, and you can get creative with, what kinds of sounds you can create.
I'm almost thinking, wouldn't it be fun if you got served up? Okay, so you get a randomly generated, maybe not so random, but you get a generated studio space, like a set studio space, almost like a puzzle to solve. You're being fed words that are almost like a series of Mad Libs. They're totally out of context. Like, give me a squish, give me an explosion, give me somebody dying, and like it even captures your microphone audio and all this sort of stuff. You put it all together, and then only after you've supplied the game with the said set of things do you actually see it like played to, potentially a licensed YouTube clip or something like that, where, oh, it's this popular video that everybody knows, but with your weird Foley on it.
Oh, that's interesting. YouTube's tricky because, whereas, as I mentioned previously, with movies, everything is like each piece of audio is captured separately on YouTube, unless you were just muting the clip and playing your new sound effects over it, which I think there's fun to be had there as well. You would be kind of losing the music and the dialogue because everyone's just kind of filming it on their phone cameras or whatever kind of cameras they have around with them. But either way, it doesn't really matter. I do like the core idea of taking something and making it much sillier, something that's recognizable and turning it into your own unique creation.
There was another game that like used like Hollywood movie clips too, wasn't there? Where that you could like, I forget if you could like edit them together or you could change the soundtrack or something, but they allowed you to manipulate Hollywood movie clips in some way. I forget in which.
The only game that I can think of off the top of my head is a recent game called Use Your Words, which is a Jackbox style game where one of the mini games that it allows you to play is it gives you clips from usually like old B movies and stuff like that from in other languages, and then it allows you to add subtitles to it. But I'm not aware of anything that uses actual movie clips, but I believe that it does exist.
I'll have to find it and post it on the website. So, okay, so what do we have? Is there a game here? It's basically Mad Libs, but for some sort of video clip. And you have a VR studio that maybe is a little puzzle solving each time. Like maybe the levels of difficulty equal how many objects end up inside your studio or how strange the objects are inside your studio. And you're just finding different ways to kind of rub them and smash them together. And also, I guess, hit record at the right moment too.
You know what would also be funny is if you were kind of scoring a scene from a movie or YouTube clip or a video game or whatever, if it could kind of do it all, maybe not all in one go. I mean, maybe it builds up to this, but it would be fun to kind of do one at a time where you also have to redo the dialogue and maybe even the music. And so dialogue, you'd have to match pretty closely what is actually going on with like lip movements and stuff. So what I was thinking is that maybe it can give you a super muffled and distorted version of the line that you're supposed to repeat and what you think that it says, almost like the game of telephone.
Yeah.
And so you speak back in rhythm with the original muffled clip, and then it records you off of your headset microphone or whatever and plugs it into the scene, and then you laugh because it's saying something silly now.
Yes, I think like now what we've kind of ended up with is something that is, video games have photo mode now almost all the time. Now we've kind of got everything but photo mode. It's like photo mode is left to the amateurs. We're handling everything that is sound, and
then there's ways to create music. Maybe it kind of tracks the intensity of the music and gives you like 4 sequencer screens that you can use various, something that's very intuitive, like Little Big Planet style audio cues or sound shapes or something that you can just drag and drop. It makes kind of silly sounds or whatever and replaces the audio, but it still fits the mood of the scene because, you are given within each, measure of a track or whatever, the appropriate intensity and the appropriate, types of instruments to work with. I don't know.
Cool.
Well, anyways, we are out of time on that one. So I think that rounded out pretty well. We came away with something that I would be thrilled to play, actually.
Yeah. How much would you pay for said game, H? $1,000? $2,000?
Probably 60.
Okay.
I would do it.
All right. We can charge 60.
All right. Well, what are we going to call that?
It's too long of a title, but I do like the sound of something like everything but the photo mode.
It's not too long for us.
I guess so. You want to go for it? Let's go for it.
We don't have to actually market this, so we can leave that to the professionals.
Exactly.
Over at EA and Ubisoft. Your problem now, buddy.
That's right.
All right. Well, that's everything but the photo mode. All right, so what I'm coming in with today is a mashup of sorts. I was thinking back to Professor Layton, and I think it's kind of a cool premise of walking around a town and solving puzzles, and I like when the puzzles are something that feels appropriate to the environment that you're in, and it's kind of cool to be walking between buildings and discovering these puzzles. There'll be someone there to explain it to you and to say, I have, this much shelf space and I want to sell everything in my inventory that's big and blue. And, we can, off the top of my head, I'm not very good at coming up with Professor Layton type puzzles. But what I was thinking is it would be really neat to have kind of a 3D open world space that doesn't explain the puzzles to you, but is littered with logic puzzles to work out. And it's just up to you to notice them and to work out what is required to solve the puzzle. So, I'm thinking something like The Witness, but for logic puzzles instead of line puzzles. So maybe a more complicated explanation to get to a rather simple pitch, but let's go ahead and start the clock and see what we come up with.
So I'm trying to think in my head, what are the most sort of, is Sudoku the most popular logic puzzle? Is that?
Yeah, I'm thinking even something more tangible than that, because I feel like you see a Sudoku grid and it almost feels like a puzzle waiting to be solved. I kind of want something where you can walk through the entire map and not really notice that anything needs to be done. And maybe that's a little cruel on the players, but I really do want that sense of discovery, to have muffins in a window and then you discover that, if I rearrange them, then they could set up a balanced display, or, again, I'll have to revisit my Layton. But I know that my favorite Layton puzzles anyways, all kind of stem from a real world setting that you're kind of manipulating.
I like that. When I think of physical logic puzzles, they're always can you do this with without lifting your hand or in a single move or something like that? So you would almost need an NPC or someone in the environment policing you, saying,
Well, you could have just the puzzle fail if you get it wrong and you can reset the puzzle. So maybe once you are interacting with puzzle elements, you have a button that resets puzzles. And so it's kind of at that point, once you notice it, just like The Witness, once you click on the puzzle grid, then the camera kind of centers around it and you can draw the line freely, you go into puzzle solving mode.
So now that we're kind of talking about this witness-based approach, do you imagine that there's going to be I know The Witness seemed to have a central thesis to how the universe is constructed or something like that. So I'm wondering what kind of fun, maybe it's just as simple as, because I think there's a lot of different, I'm sorry, I'm speaking in sentence fragments here. There's a lot of different types of brain teasers that I think could be fun. If you litter the environment with not only physical-based logic puzzles, but if you had, say, gatekeepers that were asking you riddles at different points to progress into further things, and maybe there's environmental clues, or actually the puzzles you're completing are giving you hints towards what the solution of some of the riddles could be. I love the idea of answering a riddle in a video game, but it's really tough to do without just using dialogue trees, right? Or free-form typing, in which case you have to fail really gracefully.
One of the things that I wanted to kind of maintain is nobody explicitly asking you or giving you directions. This can change, obviously, if we find, a better direction. I'm very happy to pivot. Now that I'm saying it out loud, there are actually a few games already that are like this. I'll point to the Myst series as a very close analog, and even the Room series of video games.
What I think, though, could be different about this, that Myst and the Room don't really do. Maybe the Room is a little closer to this, but The Witness, the moment that you have in The Witness of, oh my God, the entirety of this thing is a puzzle, I think that if you manage to wrap logic in and of itself in something like that, maybe I am just describing Myst and I haven't played enough Myst to hit that, but I have played a little Myst, and it always just ended up feeling a little like an adventure game to me, which is I have strange objects that I'm not quite sure, and so I end up using all the objects on all the things. So what could we do to prevent that? Is there some way to control the player's flow through these logic puzzles, or or a way to dole them out in a controlled manner so that it feels good. Like, I think that's what the room is good at, right? Which is giving you just the very next thing.
I think not having an inventory would be good if every puzzle was kind of self-contained, kind of like a Professor Layton is, instead of turning it into a Monkey Island type of game. I think you can have certainly progress barriers, just like in The Witness. There were several doors that you have to solve puzzles to pass through, and you're not going to be able to solve those puzzles until you know what it's asking of you. And then maybe as you cross those barriers, you'll be moving maybe up a skyscraper or something, and then from the top floor of the skyscraper, you can see some of the streets you were on before and trace out a traffic path or something that's on a different scale, kind of using the city to solve a puzzle.
Yeah.
You know, rearranging city blocks or something.
And if you took a bunch of the logic puzzles that were more dexterous, like, you know, tie certain ropes or connect things all in one motion or something like that. Even it's not quite a logic puzzle, but something that felt maybe akin to the game Operation, where it took very fine joystick / mouse / something control, and you had to be very dexterous to pull it off and get around curves. Then you could group those types of puzzles in sort of ascending difficulty around the same area. So like you're going through each different type of logic puzzle, whether they be true brain challenges or number things or mazes and that sort of stuff. And all of those are grouped together. And then it's like the higher level stuff that you're like, okay, this is a maze, but it's a maze that is going to require like math at certain points to get like through.
Yeah. Interesting.
Imagine being chased through a maze, like as you're tracing yourself through the maze, not like physically moving like a first person, but actually tracing top down like a piece of paper maze. If you were doing that, if there was like a second red line that was just constantly following behind you, like suddenly your pretense for like messing up would be really shrunk. You'd be like, I gotta finish this thing.
One of the things I like about The Witness, as I said earlier, is that you can, click the space bar in at any time and go into, I think that's the control for it anyways, I don't remember offhand. You can go into the puzzle mode where you freeze where you are and you get your mouse cursor and you can just that's how you solve a lot of the perspective puzzles and stuff like that. I think it's a pretty good system that would suit this type of game pretty well. Maybe it's just the only thing is that if you think you're looking at a puzzle and you're actually like looking at the back of it, or it's just a little bit off screen, you need a little bit more. I wonder how much of a nudge we would give them in the right direction without people just kind of going around tapping the space bar until the camera kind of auto centers onto something,
Yeah, I think one thing you could do is maybe a little bit what The Witness does, which is use the environment and use the 3D space and light and shadow and positioning to maybe help suggest solutions to some of the things, right? Like,
oh, that's interesting.
Maybe as I, kind of rotate myself around this puzzle, I see that like some of the black lines have been hand drawn on. So you're like, oh, okay, that's all constructed over there, and I can kind of pass through those things or something like that. So you're giving yourself little hints and cheats and context clues, and you want the environmental navigation to say, pay attention to this because it's going to give you an advantage to the other thing.
Or maybe you can find discarded notes in a trash bin that, of somebody who was previously trying to solve that puzzle and some of their failed attempts to give you an idea of what to do if you really need the extra help.
I probably have a whole trash bin worth of Witness notes that I wrote out for myself going, okay, all right, I tried this. Yeah, so I think that would be really cool, the kind of rantings of a madman trying to get through the game. Very cool.
Cool. Well, we're just about out of time on that one, so let's go ahead and close the door on this interesting City of Puzzles type of game. Maybe that's not a bad name, City of Puzzles.
City of Puzzles looks good to me, yeah.
I don't mind that at all. Right, well, let's take that and move on over to the community. This pitch comes from someone who calls themselves B. Ryan, which I think I will. He says, hey lads, coming off of last week's episode, which I guess we can infer from context which week he's referring to. I think there could be something great come out of combining skateboarding with a visually appealing color and sound experience rhythm game. I imagine what Mizuguchi could do with Ollie Ollie and Skate. Can't wait to hear what you make of it. Thanks a lot. Cool. So, it sounds like a mixture of rhythm games and skateboarding. So, let's go ahead and start the clock.
Well, whether B. Ryan knows it or not, he just pitched us Future Grind for the Nintendo Switch. I read this pitch and I saw that video, and it was hard to get out of my head that it was kind of a similar thing. The idea of, I could see, I'm going to just call him Miz because he and I are such good friends. I could see Miz going for a, Tron-esque neon sort of weird contraption vehicle that is grinding on more than one dimension.
Oh, wow.
But and obviously to rhythm and that sort of thing. I don't know how much the music actually plays into Future Grind, but I don't know. What do you think, H?
Yes, for context, Future Grind is a game where you're playing as kind of like a motorcycle that you can flip around, like a Trials game almost, but a lot faster, and you're going between. You have a one color wheel in the front and then another color wheel in the back, and there are various rails along a side-scrolling perspective that contain the different that are one of the two colors, and you can only touch the appropriate rail with the wheel that matches it color-wise. So it's all about flipping around and reacting and making sure that you're always touching the right color. Yeah, that's interesting. It's a good thing to think of. When I originally read this pitch, just now, the difficult thing is that, to me, the things that I appreciate about skateboarding games is a sense of freedom, like you would get in a Tony Hawk type game of exploration and being creative with using parts of the environment in ways that they weren't intended to, turn the real world into a skate park in a way. That's exciting. That's kind of rebellious and cool and punk rock, And the thing about music is that it's all very predictable and measured. And to me, it seems like it would be difficult to create something rhythmic without losing the sense of freedom,
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And as long as we're providing context, I guess I'll add in, like, for people that don't know, Mizuguchi is a video game creator who's made such games as Luminous and Rez and most recently Tetris Effect. So his games are very sort of controlled on rails experiences, timed to a beat, and everything is really jamming all at once. I see what you're saying about the freedom and the roaming around of skating, but I think, when he says Ollie Ollie here, and I think about how kind of linear Ollie Ollie is, but still fun, I wonder if you almost were, imagine a Rez, but kind of on a skateboard, and maybe you're even looking down a little bit towards the ground, and there were sort of visual things happening underneath you, very, the typical euphoric sort of synesthesia stuff happening. And as you kind of jump in the air, you get really close-up looks at these virtual feet that you can kick flip and do all sorts of tricks. And as you trick and you land, it kind of creates a smash and a cascade out that potentially is fighting back little virtual bacteria or little dolphins and just any sort of weird Mizuguchi-esque visual that you can think of. It's, you're an anteater on a skateboard smashing ants in one thing, and then you're a wine person smashing grapes with your feet in another. Just very strange visuals of things that get smashed.
Interesting. I like your idea of interesting perspectives and approaching the skateboard in a way that, we haven't seen before, something that feels kind of alien in a, what is a somewhat familiar genre. It's not entirely drowning in entries like other sports games would be, but, we're pretty familiar with what skateboarding games should look like at this point.
Yeah.
But coming up with something new, like a top-down view, is kind of neat. Maybe even something where the camera is positioned under the skateboard. And so you get this kind of visceral, intense feeling as you are, something that feels very close to the action. Another thing I like is in the later Tony Hawk games, they gave you the ability to, in the air, kind of slow down time and then use the thumbsticks to kick your feet in various directions and create custom tricks in a way. So maybe if we kind of root this in something like Thumper, where it is kind of linear, maybe you are positioned like uncomfortably underneath the skateboard and reacting to rails and wall rides and jumps and stuff as they appear. And then when you get a big jump, you can click in the sticks, you can, create your own custom trick and try to land it. And if you do, it returns you a huge, crazy amount of points. And if you bail, then, maybe the song goes on for a few beats and picks back up as your character starts to, pull himself up off the ground again.
That's interesting. I also, when you talk about perspective, that was one of the things that I think made Skate seem to stand out so much against like Tony Hawk, right? Where it's like, okay, wow, I'm down here hanging out with feet, as opposed to like Tony Hawk was very much the full body experience. Like, what does a skateboard look like if you were perpetually looking at it through like a puddle? Like if you're looking at like the only ever the bottom of the skateboard, and every time you jump, it almost like shrinks in a way.
So like it's getting farther away from you and that's why it's shrinking, or is it actually
like the person would be jumping in the air, you're seeing a reflection of it, so they're kind of you are the ground.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's like in movies sometimes how they shoot up underneath glass or something, you can see stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. Almost like I guess a contemporary example might be like there's a scene in Ready Player One where he's kind of driving underground and he can see up through the bottom of the ground. So you're seeing through the bottom of the ground, you're looking at the skateboard, it's kind of jumping away from you. And so you might not even have the abstraction of a body. Maybe you just have like arms or something sticking out the side of it. This is a very slender wireframe man or something like that. And as it jumps away from you, maybe there are just really abstract representations of rails as just like single 1 or 2 pixel lines, and different sorts of like all of the language of skateboarding, whether it be ramps or half pipes, as you encounter them, they are abstracted out. So you end up reading it and detecting that all these things are like have their real life analog, but they're all abstracted into this visual language that potentially can be themed and pulse and do all sorts of weird, interesting things.
Interesting. And then, of course, turning this into a great laser light show, as is tradition now.
That's right. Yeah. You have to have a absolute killer soundtrack as well.
I think skateboarding is there's so few components involved that it would be easy to turn into kind of like an abstract journey type of experience.
Yeah, especially if you knew like a half pipe is a moment where you are, let's say you encountered it rhythmically throughout a level. So maybe you're not just like totally able to explore the whole thing. Maybe you are a little bit going to music or something, but when you hit a half pipe section that your character is kind of going from left to right, and at each of those points, you're gaining momentum, and so that allows you to kind of jump farther away and sort of shrink yourself down. Maybe you're even dodging things by shrinking yourself, right?
Yeah.
Enemies are coming at you, and the jump is a shrink to kind of thread the needle. And the more tricks you do, the sort of longer you stay in the air. So it's the euphoria, the completion of a trick that is propelling you upwards in a way, or sustaining your flight.
That's interesting. I do have more questions, but we're out of time. Let's wrap that up and come up with a name for this crazy rhythm skateboarding game.
Oh man, we got to figure out some way to like get some luminous in there, get some, maybe the word effect makes it in there somewhere.
That's stupid. We can call it the Tony effect.
Oh. Oh, come on.
I feel like we've used that before. That's ringing a bell.
The Tony effect? It does sound like something we would have said. What about something that's like res? Is there something that's like wheels? Oh, God, that's terrible. With a Z, of course.
Oh, boy. Trucks. That kind of sends a different message. I'd be disappointed if I wanted a truck game and I got a abstract musical skateboarding game.
What if we just called it like Gryndz?
Gryndz. Okay. That seems appropriate.
And that can be just with an S or a Z. You pick, and I'll be delighted either way.
All right, Gryndz. Find out in the show notes how we spelled it. Anyways, that came from B. Ryan. And thank you. That is good advice for all of us to follow. At least both of us. Anyways, if you would like to email us your own pitch, you can do so at playwrightcast@gmail.com. You can write into our website, playwrightcast.com/pitch. You can tweet us at playwrightcast. You can probably even find us on the Cane and Rinse forums. We're still getting things set up, but we might just be there. You'll see.
Yeah, basically wherever you look for us, hopefully we show up. Special thank you to PROTODOME for the use of our theme song, Hello World, and double special thank you to our new network, Cane and Rinse, for having us on. Cane and Rinse is a wonderful video games podcast and media website where you can find other great shows like the Cane and Rinse podcast, where they do awesome long-form reviews, Sausage Factory with interviews with developers and behind the scenes, and of course the wonderful Sound of Play, which has such brand synergy, doesn't it, H? I hear both hosts of that show are really, really fantastic. So go check out the other shows on Cane and Rinse.
Oh, and by the way, we're on Thursdays now. You know that because this is Thursday and you're listening to it on day one because you can't get enough. But
that's right.
Yeah, we're on Thursdays. Well, anyways, let's go out today with our first miniature pitch on the new network. Q, what are you going to lead us out of the show with?
This one is dead simple. It just needs to happen. The Resident Evil 2 remake treatment for Parasite Eve. Get it done, Square.
Okay, all right.
Let's go.
Okay, well, we'll see you next week.
Bye.